The clock on the mantel ticked loudly against the silence of the room, filling with the scent of Earl Grey and fresh lavender flowers. Martha sat perfectly straight in her wicker chair, her hands folded neatly on her lap as she waited for the sugar bowl to reach her side. She had invited her 3 closest friends over for afternoon tea, expecting nothing more than gossip and laughter shared over china cups. She did not know that within this hour her life would be extinguished and her peace would be shattered forever by a hand she thought she knew. At 4 o'clock sharp, the teapot steam rose and bubbles formed in the silver spoon resting on the saucer. Everyone was smiling, everyone was polite, and everything looked perfect enough to capture in a photograph for years to come. Nobody noticed the tension that tightened the throat of the hostess when a second hand moved toward the top of the hour, marking the final minute before the sun began to dip behind the oak trees. They thought the moment was just another pleasant afternoon, filled with light conversation, but the air held a secret weight that would crush them all once the truth came out. Martha took a sip from her cup and laughed a soft, warm laugh that made her daughter wish she could remember every detail of that day. Then at 5 o'clock, when the chimes rang through the house, the laughter stopped. Her hand fell away from the porcelain cup, and she slumped forward onto the table, leaving the rest of the world standing frozen in disbelief, wondering how one woman could vanish so quickly while still surrounded by love. This story begins years before the tragedy occurred in a quiet suburban neighborhood, where neighbors watched the mailboxes and kept secrets locked inside their hearts. Martha was a woman who believed in the power of kindness and hospitality above all other virtues, running a local volunteer organization and hosting the annual bake sale that brought the entire town together. Her husband, William, supported her efforts, silently working long hours at the factory to provide the stability she needed to focus on the community. They were the type of couple people pointed out in passing, saying how lucky Martha was to have a man who understood her dreams completely. Her closest friend, Eleanor, had been part of their lives for decades, attending family dinners and Christmas gatherings without ever a quarrel raised between the two families. Yet even in the most loyal friendships, there are small cracks forming beneath the surface, waiting for a heavy load to push them apart. We do not always see the resentment hiding behind a smile when someone asks how you're doing today, until that question becomes the last thing we ever answer. Martha had planned this tea party to celebrate her birthday with no agenda other than happiness and connection. She set out the best china and the finest pastries, knowing the cost, but believing that memories are worth more than money spent. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. This question is important because it helps us understand the reach of the stories we tell to ensure we bring justice to the voices that need to be heard around the globe. Knowing your location allows us to tailor our content closer to your own experiences with community and trust. We are building a network of listeners who care deeply about truth and accountability. Your participation makes this channel stronger and ensures we can continue investigating complex cases like the ones we cover here today. Thank you for joining this journey with us. Returning to the timeline of that afternoon, we find that Eleanor first arriving just minutes early to help set the table. She was the type of woman who always offered extra labor, even when the hosts insisted there was no need for such assistance. She poured water into the glass pitcher, adjusting the ice cubes with precision and checking the temperature of the tea leaves in the pot. William watched her move around the kitchen, noticing that her movements were tighter than usual, almost mechanical in nature. Martha mentioned how tired William was looking and suggested he step out to get some air to give the women privacy for the visit. He walked away, leaving his wife in the company of her oldest friend in the safety of her own home. The atmosphere felt lighter than usual, but Eleanor kept glancing at the pocket watch tucked into her cardigan, checking the time repeatedly. She said nothing aloud, but her eyes tracked the movement of the minute hand, as if timing a specific event rather than simply waiting for guests. When the first bell rang, signaling another friend's arrival, Eleanor stood up quickly and smoothed the fabric of her skirt, pretending to fix a hairpin she had not lost. It was a small gesture that went unnoticed by everyone else, but it planted a seed of doubt in the mind of the observer who would later review the footage. At 4:15, the remaining guests entered the garden, walking across the grass, wearing white sundresses and carrying gifts wrapped in pastel paper. Martha greeted them warmly, accepting the flowers and chocolates with genuine gratitude. The men played cards on the porch while the women sat under the gazebo, sipping hot liquids through delicate straws. The conversation flowed easily, covering topics like grandchildren health updates and upcoming holiday plans. There was no sign of danger. There was only the warmth of a summer day, fading into evening comfort. But somewhere in the middle of the talk, Eleanor pulled her purse closer to her body. She claimed she needed to check a message from her son regarding work obligations. She stood up and walked toward the back door, opening it slowly to step outside for what she called a private moment. The screen door swung shut behind her, cutting off the noise of the crickets and the wind. Martha watched her leave, thinking nothing of it, assuming she would return with good news. Minutes passed, and the laughter continued as the others discussed the new garden hose they had bought last month. One of the guests mentioned seeing a dark car parked on the street outside, near the curb, but nobody paid attention to such details in the moment. It seemed like just another neighbor driving by, until the mood shifted suddenly when Eleanor returned without her purse. The incident happened so fast that it became difficult to pinpoint the exact moment of collapse. Martha reached for the creamer bottle to pour milk in her cup, and her arm trembled slightly before dropping to her side. She looked down at the liquid spilling across the tablecloth, spreading in a creamy brown stain that covered the floral pattern completely. She tried to stand up from her chair and grab the edge of the wood to stabilize herself. Her breathing changed rapidly, becoming shallow and uneven as sweat broke out on her forehead instantly. Someone asked if she was all right, and she nodded weakly, refusing to admit there was a problem. The second guest placed a hand on her shoulder, feeling the heat radiating from her skin through the cotton fabric of her blouse. That was when she spoke clearly for the first time in months, warning them all to stop drinking the beverage being served to them. She warned that the pot was contaminated with something that should not be touched or consumed under any circumstances. Panic spread through the group as the women realized the gravity of her words. They stood up quickly, knocking chairs over in the scramble to clear the area. One man grabbed his phone, dialing emergency services, while another ran into the kitchen to search for antiseptic supplies. The scene moved from calm to chaos in the span of 30 seconds, changing a Sunday gathering into a crisis requiring urgent intervention. When the police officers arrived, the house smelled strongly of herbs and lemon polish, masking any chemical scents that might remain. Investigators cordoned off the patio area, placing yellow tape around the perimeter, preventing anyone from moving items on the table. The coroner examined the victims, noting signs of rapid toxicity that indicated a substance with a quick onset action. Tests revealed traces of a rare alkaloid known to disrupt heart function, effectively causing cardiac arrest within minutes of ingestion. It was confirmed that the poison had been introduced directly into the teapot before the guests arrived. No fingerprints were found on the handle of the vessel despite multiple attempts by the team to lift prints successfully. This lack of evidence suggested the killer wore gloves during the preparation process or used a method that left no biological trace. Detectives interviewed every person present, asking them to recall exactly what they had done prior to the ceremony. Each story matched the others closely regarding the seating arrangements and the order of serving. Yet one inconsistency appeared in the records regarding the time Eleanor had stepped outside alone. Eleanor stated she had gone to the driveway to answer a ring on the landline phone located in the garage. However, security logs showed the phone had remained silent throughout the entire period. Further investigation revealed that the wire leading to the garage had been cut 6 months prior, rendering the device useless. The lie was exposed under scrutiny, forcing Eleanor to reconsider the narrative she had prepared beforehand. She claimed it was an accident driven by stress rather than malicious intent to harm her longtime friend. But the medical examiner ruled out suicide or accidental overdose, pointing directly toward foul play committed by someone with intimate knowledge of the household routines. The motive remained elusive for weeks as authorities reviewed bank statements and property deeds. Money did not seem to be the issue since the estate was stable and debts were paid in full. Emotion seemed the primary driver based on the severity of the actions taken against the victim. Friends recalled rumors of past arguments regarding inheritance, sharing, and family loyalty disputes. None of the parties had spoken openly about these tensions in public, leading many to believe the hatred had festered for years. The trial took place in a crowded courtroom filled with supporters of both the prosecution and defense teams. Eleanor sat calmly, wearing a simple navy blue suit, while maintaining eye contact with the jury as they deliberated the case. Her attorney argued that there was insufficient proof linking her directly to the act without the smoking gun. They pointed to gaps in the timeline and the inability to identify the poison brand definitively. Witnesses testified about seeing Eleanor near the kitchen counter shortly before the tea was served. Her defense lawyer countered by suggesting she had gone in to fetch napkins and that someone else had tampered with the pot afterwards. The judge instructed the jury to consider reasonable doubt carefully before delivering their final verdict. Hours turned into days of testimony involving blood samples and forensic analysis reports submitted as evidence. The defense team fought hard to paint a picture of negligence rather than premeditated malice. They highlighted the chaotic environment of the afternoon, showing how easily mistakes could happen among busy cooks. Still, the weight of the evidence began to tilt toward the guilty outcome as inconsistencies mounted. In the end, the verdict was unanimous, finding Eleanor guilty of first-degree murder, resulting in a life sentence without possibility of parole. The judge delivered the decision, reading the statement in a firm, steady voice, commanding respect from all present. Family members wept softly in the front row as the gavel came down, striking the bench with finality. William embraced Martha's daughter, who had traveled from out of state to attend the proceedings. He looked relieved, yet burdened, knowing that justice had been served, but could not bring back the past. The prison facilities accepted the condemned woman, sending her to a maximum security unit in another state. Life in prison is harsh and unforgiving, especially for those who spent their adult years living in comfort. She has no right to appeal. Further appeals have been exhausted beyond legal capacity, allowing the law to stand. Communities continue to speak about the tragedy, reminding themselves of the importance of trust. Some residents installed new locks on their doors, while others joined local watch programs to protect their families. The memory of that tea party remains a lesson learned the hard way about human nature and deception. People often assume their closest allies are safe, but sometimes danger comes from the hand that serves the drink. The final twist emerged years later when a hidden journal was discovered in the attic of the house sold after the sale of assets. Inside, pages were filled with notes detailing grudges held against the victim by various relatives over a decade. Eleanor confessed in a recorded statement obtained during a subsequent interview that she acted out of revenge, not grief. She blamed Martha for ruining a business deal that ruined her career trajectory 10 years earlier. That old grievance fueled the desire to eliminate the person who blocked her path to success. She wanted Martha to pay for the loss of her livelihood, regardless of the personal cost involved. The discovery explained why the poison was so targeted and why no random theft accompanied the crime. It was purely about personal satisfaction and settling an old score through lethal force. Justice was eventually restored through the court system, but scars remained visible on the surviving family members. Grief is slow to fade when it stems from betrayal by someone you invited into your sanctuary. The tea kettle sits rusting on the stove, collecting dust in the corner of a sealed room. It stands as a monument to what happens when pride consumes the heart completely. As you reflect on this story, consider the people in your own life who share your meals and your secrets. Trust is fragile, and it takes a lifetime to build, but only seconds to destroy. If you have a theory about how this unfolded, or if you have experienced something similar, please share below. We value your input because it adds perspective to the narrative we share with millions of viewers worldwide. Every story we tell aims to honor the victims and educate the living about the dangers around us. Stay vigilant and look out for the little red flags that might signal trouble before it is too late. Thank you again for spending this time with us to witness the truth of this heartbreaking event. Subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into real-life mysteries that impact communities daily. Keep the conversation going in the comment section as we build a community united by curiosity and justice.